Today, we begin with a tragedy that has left aviation experts stunned, a racing community heartbroken, and a nation mourning during what should have been a joyous holiday season. This is a story that unfolded not over hours, not over days, but in mere minutes near a small airport in the heart of North Carolina. These were minutes that changed the legacy of a sporting icon forever. Minutes that ended in fire, debris, and a devastating silence. This story serves as a harrowing reminder of just how fragile life truly is, even for those we consider modern-day heroes. A tragedy that unfolded not over hours, not over days, but in mere minutes near a small airport in North Carolina. Minutes that changed everything for one family. Minutes that ended in fire and devastation. Minutes that remind us just how fragile life truly is. The incident near Statesville, North Carolina on Thursday, December 18, 2025, has gripped the country, forcing us to ask one haunting question. How could this happen? What happened on that gray December morning represents every pilot's nightmare. Something went wrong almost immediately after the wheels left the pavement. Despite a desperate struggle by the crew to wrestle the aircraft back to the safety of the runway, 7 souls were lost. Among the fallen was a man whose name is etched into the history books of American motorsports, the legendary former NASCAR Cup champion, Greg Biffle. I want to be absolutely clear from the beginning and to correct early conflicting reports that surfaced in the chaos of the crash. Greg Biffle was indeed on board the aircraft, while some initial news flashes on the morning of December 19th suggested he may have remained on the ground. Those hopes were dismantled as the manifest was confirmed by local authorities and family representatives. The narrative that Greg Biffle was safely on the ground was a mistake that needed to be corrected. The truth, however painful, demands clarity and honors the fact that he faced this final challenge alongside his family and friends. He did not abandon them. He was with them until the very end. Alongside Greg was his wife, Cristina Biffle, age 51. The crash also claimed the lives of the couple's 2 children, their 14-year-old daughter Emma, a young girl with her entire life ahead of her, and their 5-year-old son, Ryder, whose short years were filled with the love of a father who was a hero to millions. The crash also claimed the lives of Craig Wadsworth, a respected figure in the racing world and longtime friend to the Biffle family, and the pilot team of Dennis Dutton and his son, Jack Dutton. Dennis Dutton was a highly experienced aviator, a man trusted to carry precious cargo through the skies. His son, Jack, was by his side that morning, as they had been so many times before. This was a family and a group of close friends traveling together just days before Christmas. They were headed for the warmth of Sarasota, Florida, for a holiday break that would never begin. 7 souls, 1 plane, and a sequence of events that unfolded with terrifying speed. This video is not about speculation. It is about presenting the facts we know, analyzing the available flight data, and honoring the memory of those we lost. The official investigation by the National Transportation Safety Board is ongoing, and we must respect that process while examining what the evidence currently shows. This is the complete story of what happened that tragic December morning. To understand the magnitude of this loss, we have to look at the man at the center of it all. Greg Biffle was not just a name on a leaderboard. He was a titan of the asphalt, a warrior of the oval, a champion in every sense of the word. Born in Vancouver, Washington, Greg Biffle's journey to the pinnacle of NASCAR was a testament to grit, determination, and raw technical prowess. He was famously discovered by the legendary Benny Parsons, a NASCAR Hall of Famer who recognized something special in the young driver from the Pacific Northwest. Parsons recommended Biffle to Jack Roush, the iconic team owner whose stable of drivers had already produced multiple championships. From there, Greg Biffle did not just race, he dominated. He became the first driver in NASCAR history to win championships in both the Craftsman Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. That accomplishment alone would secure his place in racing history. But Greg Biffle was just getting started. Over a career spanning nearly 2 decades, from 1998 to 2016, he secured 19 Cup Series victories while competing primarily for Roush Fang Racing. He finished as high as 2nd in the championship standings in 2005, narrowly missing the ultimate prize, but cementing his reputation as one of the most consistent performers of his generation. They called him the Biff. He was a driver known for his uncanny ability to save a car on the edge of disaster. When other drivers would spin out or hit the wall, Biffle would somehow gather it up and keep going. He finished consistently in the top 5 when others faltered. His car control was legendary, his racecraft was impeccable, his determination was unmatched. His career was a masterclass in consistency and determination, earning him a place among NASCAR's 75 greatest drivers. That is not a list that includes everyone who ever strapped into a stock car. That is the pantheon, the elite, the immortals of the sport. Greg Biffle belonged among them. But in recent years, Greg Biffle's reputation had transcended the racetrack in the most profound way possible. In the autumn of 2024, when Hurricane Helene tore through western North Carolina, the devastation was almost beyond comprehension. Entire communities in the Appalachian Mountains were cut off from the outside world. Roads were washed away, power lines were down, cell towers were destroyed. Thousands of people were stranded with no way to communicate, no way to receive supplies, and no way to escape. The government response was slow, emergency services were overwhelmed, people were dying in the mountains, and help was not coming fast enough. Greg Biffle did not wait for an invitation to help. He did not write a check and call it a day. He activated himself. Biffle utilized his own private fleet of helicopters, flying hundreds of hours into dangerous, uncharted terrain. He delivered Starlink satellite terminals so that isolated communities could communicate with the outside world. He brought food to families who had not eaten in days. He delivered medicine to people whose prescriptions had run out. He evacuated the injured and the elderly. He saved lives when no one else could reach them. He became a regional hero, a beacon of hope in the darkness. While others talked about helping, Greg Biffle acted. He risked his own life flying into weather conditions that would give most pilots pause because people needed him and he had the skills to make a difference. Governor Josh Stein of North Carolina would later note that Biffle lives a life of courage and compassion. That assessment was not hyperbole. It was documented fact. It is a cruel, almost unbelievable irony of fate that a man who spent so much of his life mastering the air to save others would lose his own life in the same sky. The hero of Hurricane Helene, the man who defied danger to rescue strangers, could not be rescued himself when danger came for him and his family. Now I must discuss the weather conditions at Statesville Regional Airport that morning because weather likely played a significant, if not causal, role in this tragedy. As the family and friends boarded the aircraft, the weather in Statesville was rapidly deteriorating. The timestamp was 10 a.m. Eastern Time. The official weather report, known in aviation terminology as a METAR, indicated marginal visual flight rules. Pilots refer to this as the yellow zone, not quite dangerous enough to cancel a flight, but far from ideal conditions. The cloud ceiling was sitting between 400 and 1,000 feet above ground level. A thick, cold drizzle was falling across the area. Visibility was less than 2 statute miles. Light rain was reducing visibility further with each passing minute. For a jet takeoff, these conditions present a specific challenge. Almost immediately after lifting off, the pilots would lose all visual reference to the ground and horizon. They would enter a world of gray mist where up and down become indistinguishable without instruments. They would have to rely entirely on their gauges, their screens, and their training to tell them which way was up, which way was down, and where the ground was lurking below. This requires a rapid transition from visual flight rules to instrument flight rules. It is a maneuver that demands perfect discipline and a perfectly functioning aircraft. When something goes wrong in these conditions, the margin for error shrinks to almost nothing. Let me walk you through what the evidence tells us happened during those critical 9 minutes. At exactly 10:06 a.m. Eastern Time, the Citation throttled up. The Pratt & Whitney engines surged to life, their familiar whine building to a roar. The jet accelerated down runway 10, gaining speed with each passing second. The rotation was clean, the nose lifted, the main gear left the pavement, the gear retracted into the belly of the aircraft with a familiar thump. To any observer on the ground, it looked like a standard departure. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming, just another business jet climbing into the December sky. The jet began a climbing left turn, banking toward the south, establishing course toward Florida. The initial phase of the takeoff appeared completely normal.
But as they reached approximately 2,200 feet above mean sea level, which translates to roughly 1,260 feet above ground level, given the airport's elevation of approximately 940 feet, something catastrophically went wrong. Then, something went wrong. We have to look at the telemetry provided by NTSB Exchange to understand the horror of the next few minutes. This data, recorded by ground-based receivers tracking the transponder signals, provides a second-by-second account of what the aircraft was doing. It cannot tell us why, but it shows us what. At 10:08 a.m. Eastern Time, the smooth climb stopped. The aircraft began to oscillate violently. In a matter of seconds, the jet dropped from 2,200 feet above mean sea level to just 600 feet above the ground. Then, impossibly, it surged back up toward 1,500 feet, only to drop again. These were not controlled movements. These were not the inputs of a pilot executing a planned maneuver. These were the movements of a crew fighting for their lives against an aircraft that had become their enemy. The vertical speed data is staggering. At points, the aircraft was descending at 5,000 feet per minute. That is a rate that would suggest a near vertical dive, a plunge toward the earth that would pin passengers to their seats with brutal G-forces. Then, the pilots managed to pull it back up in a frantic search for control. Then, descending again. Then, climbing again. The rate of climb and descent varied wildly throughout this phase. At times, the aircraft was climbing at approximately 1,000 feet per minute, which is normal for a business jet. Then, suddenly, the vertical speed would reverse, showing a descent of 2,000 feet per minute. Then climbing again, sometimes at rates exceeding 4,000 feet per minute. Then descending at rates approaching 5,000 feet per minute. This is not normal flight behavior. Under ordinary circumstances, a business jet maintains smooth, controlled climbs and descents. The fluctuations recorded in this flight data indicate something was seriously, fundamentally wrong with the aircraft or its control systems. The pilot was no longer the master of the machine. He was fighting a machine that was trying to kill him and everyone aboard. The G-forces experienced by the passengers would have been immense and terrifying. The sensation of falling, then being pressed into seats, then falling again. 7 people experiencing the most horrifying roller coaster imaginable, knowing that this was not a ride that could be stopped. We do not know exactly what went wrong. It could have been an engine failure, though the Citation II is designed to fly safely on a single engine. It could have been a flight control malfunction affecting the aircraft's ability to climb or maintain stable flight. It could have been an electrical system failure, a pressurization problem, or any number of other mechanical issues. Witnesses at the nearby Lakewood Golf Club reported hearing the engines making a surging or stuttering sound. This could indicate a power problem, perhaps asymmetric thrust, where one engine was producing more power than the other. Or it could have been the sound of pilots manipulating the throttles, desperately trying to regain control. The investigation will eventually reveal the cause. For now, we can only examine the flight data to understand what the aircraft did, not why it did it. Imagine the scene inside that cabin. The terrain and pull-up warnings from the Ground Proximity Warning System, known as GWPS, would have been blaring in the cockpit, a harsh, synthesized voice yelling, "Danger! Danger! Pull up! Pull up!" Red lights flashing, alarms screaming. Outside the windshield, there was nothing but gray clouds and rain. No horizon line to orient against, no ground references to judge altitude, just gray in every direction. The pilots were likely experiencing intense spatial disorientation as they fought to level the wings. When you can't see the horizon, your inner ear can lie to you. It can tell you that you are climbing when you are diving. It can tell you that you are level when you are in a steep bank. Only the instruments tell the truth, and trusting those instruments while your body screams different information requires training, discipline, and a functioning aircraft. In this moment of pure chaos, the crew made a decision that is debated in every flight school across the globe. They attempted the impossible turn. In aviation, the impossible turn refers to the extreme difficulty of turning 180 degrees back to the runway after a catastrophic failure on takeoff. Most flight instructors teach that if an engine fails below 1,000 feet, you should land straight ahead, no matter what is in front of you. A field, a road, a parking lot, anything is better than attempting a turn that could kill you. The physics are unforgiving. Turning back requires a steep bank angle. A steep bank causes a massive loss of lift. Less lift means the aircraft descends. In a turn, the aircraft also needs more speed to maintain lift, but speed bleeds away in a climb. The combination of low altitude, low speed, and steep bank leads to stalls. Stalls lead to spins. Spins at low altitude lead to crashes. The impossible turn has killed countless pilots who attempted it and failed. But for a jet in a populated area like Statesville, landing straight ahead is not always an option. There are houses below, schools, businesses, families going about their morning routines unaware of the drama unfolding above them. The crew, in a desperate bid to save everyone on board, attempted to bring the jet back to runway 28, the opposite end of the strip they had just left. If they could reach that pavement, they could land. They could save everyone. The margin for error was non-existent. They had seconds, not minutes. But the crew of this aircraft attempted it. They fought to save everyone on board. They did not give up. They tried everything they could. By 10:14 a.m. Eastern Time, the aircraft was making its final, fatal approach. The Citation emerged from the low clouds, finally visible to witnesses on the ground. Golfers at the Lakewood Golf Club, which sits just off the airport property, described a chilling sight. They saw the white and blue jet emerge from the clouds at an altitude so low it seemed it would clip the treetops. The engines were sputtering and surging. The wings were rocking. It was clear to everyone watching it that something was terribly wrong. Some golfers reported diving for cover as the jet roared overhead. They watched the jet bank hard, desperately trying to align with the runway threshold that was rapidly approaching. The pilots were still fighting, still trying, still believing they could make it. The final moments are a blur of data points and eyewitness accounts. The aircraft was low, too low, slow for a jet approach, but still fighting the controls, still trying to reach the runway. At approximately 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time, just 9 minutes after leaving the ground, the struggle ended. The Citation was unable to reach the asphalt. It clipped the perimeter fence of the airfield and impacted the ground violently near the east end of runway 28, just feet from safety, just seconds from survival. The impact was catastrophic and immediate. The fuel tanks, filled for the trip to Florida, erupted into a massive fireball that could be seen for miles. The explosion sent a column of black smoke into the gray December sky. Local residents described feeling a thump that shook their homes. Windows rattled, dogs barked, people stepped onto their porches to see what had happened, and they saw the smoke rising from the airport.
By noon Eastern Time on December 18th, FAA investigators had arrived on scene to begin their preliminary investigation. They secured the wreckage and began the painstaking process of documenting every piece of debris. On Friday, December 19th, the NTSB GO team arrived on site. This team is composed of the best accident investigators in the world, men and women who have spent their careers piecing together the last moments of doomed aircraft. They will spend months, perhaps years, sifting through every piece of charred metal. The investigation will examine every component of the aircraft. The Pratt & Whitney engines will be torn down and inspected for signs of internal failure, bird ingestion, or mechanical breakdown. The flight controls will be traced and tested. The avionics and electrical systems will be analyzed for any anomalies. Most critically, investigators will rely on the black boxes. The cockpit voice recorder will contain the final words of the crew, their callouts, their warnings to each other, their attempts to troubleshoot the problem, perhaps their final words to each other as they realized they would not make it. The flight data recorder will contain the raw data of every control input, every engine cycle, and every altitude reading in those final 9 minutes. It will show exactly what the aircraft was doing second by second as the tragedy unfolded. The investigation will also look closely at human factors and the interplay of technology and environment. Was there a medical emergency in the cockpit that incapacitated one of the pilots? Was the low visibility a factor in spatial disorientation when the emergency began? Or was it a mechanical failure so severe that even a champion like Greg Biffle and a veteran like Dennis Dutton could not overcome it? Preliminary reports indicate that NTSB officials are closely examining the synergy between any potential mechanical failure and those adverse weather conditions. The low visibility meant the pilots could not simply look for the runway. They were relying heavily on their instruments while fighting a physical emergency that demanded their full attention. The NTSB preliminary report is expected in approximately 30 days, providing basic factual information about the accident. However, the final report, including the official determination of probable cause, will likely take 12 to 24 months to complete.
The NTSB is thorough and methodical. Their goal is not speed, but accuracy, because the lessons learned from each investigation help prevent future tragedies. The accidents of the past have made today's flights safer, and as heartbreaking as it is to say, this tragedy will contribute to making future flights safer for others. The racing world has been hit hard by this loss. Greg Biffle was a man of the people. He did not just live in the world of NASCAR, he lived in the real world, helping his neighbors during their darkest hours. NASCAR released a statement saying they are devastated by the loss of a beloved member of the racing family. From the garages of Charlotte to the mountains of Appalachia, the mourning is deep and genuine. Fellow drivers, team owners, and fans have poured out their grief on social media and in interviews. They remember a competitor who raced hard but fair, a teammate who lifted others up, a champion who never forgot where he came from. Greg was 55 years old, a man who had survived the most dangerous era of racing when safety standards were not what they are today. He walked away from countless close calls on the track. He cheated death more times than most people can imagine, only to be taken in a tragic 9-minute window above his own community. Sometimes, despite the best training, the best equipment, and the best intentions, fate is simply cruel. Before I conclude, I want to take a moment to truly honor those we lost. 7 people boarded that aircraft on a December morning, traveling together during what should have been a joyous holiday season. They were family. They were friends. They were human beings with hopes, dreams, and people who loved them. We remember Greg Biffle, champion, hero, humanitarian, a man who lived life at full throttle, always pushing the limits and always giving back. He spent his final years not resting on his racing laurels, but actively saving lives. That is his true legacy. We remember Cristina Biffle, the rock of the family, a wife who supported her husband through the triumphs and challenges of a racing career, a mother who raised 2 beautiful children with love and dedication. We remember Emma Biffle, 14 years old, a young girl with her whole life ahead of her. High school dances she would never attend, a college degree she would never earn, a career she would never pursue, all of it erased in 9 minutes on a December morning. We remember Ryder Biffle, just 5 years old. He would never start first grade. He would never learn to ride a bike without training wheels. He would never grow up to perhaps follow in his father's footsteps, whether on the racetrack or in humanitarian service. His 5 years were filled with the love of parents and a sister who adored him. That love remains, even as he is gone. We remember Dennis Dutton, a skilled pilot who did everything he could in those final moments to save his passengers. He faced an impossible situation and fought until the very end. That is what pilots do. They never give up. We remember Jack Dutton, by his father's side until the end, a son who shared his father's passion for aviation. We remember Craig Wadsworth, a longtime member of the motorsports community, a friend to the Biffles, a man loved and respected by everyone who knew him. This is not just an aviation accident to be analyzed. This is a family destroyed. This is a community in mourning. This is a stark reminder that every flight carries precious human cargo, lives that matter to someone. Every aviation accident teaches us something. When the NTSB completes the investigation, they will issue safety recommendations designed to prevent future tragedies in the future. That knowledge offers no consolation to the families who lost loved ones this week, but it is the legacy that aviation safety investigations leave behind. Knowledge that protects future passengers, future pilots, and future families. Greg Biffle spent his life chasing the checkered flag, a master of speed and control. In the end, he was remembered not just for how he finished a race, but for how he helped others finish theirs. His humanitarian work during Hurricane Helene saved lives. That is his true legacy, long after the investigation is complete and the headlines have faded. I will continue monitoring this investigation and will provide updates as new information becomes available from official sources. Our commitment is to present facts, not speculation, and to treat this tragedy with the respect and solemnity it deserves. To the Biffle family, the Dutton family, the Wadsworth family, and all those affected by this devastating loss, our hearts go out to you. May you find strength in the days ahead, comfort in your memories, and peace in knowing that so many people across this country share your grief. Fly safe, honor those we have lost, and remember that every flight, every journey, every moment with the people we love is precious. Thank you for watching.